Hey, welcome back. So, we've written the helper class. That's our blueprint. Now it's actually time to create a helper object. Here's how we do this. We go to a line before we create our JFrame called the GUI, and I type in the following. Helper H equals new helper. Empty parentheses, semicolon. Now, I can name my helper object anything I want. I can name it Fred. I can name it, this is a long name for a helper object, but that's really annoying. So I'm just going to call it H. So now what we've done with this one line is we've actually created a helper object. And the object is based upon the blueprint that we just wrote. In other words, this object has focus variable, and it has 4 methods attached to it. It has a set focus method, it has a get focus method, and it has a Celsius to Fahrenheit and Fahrenheit to Celsius method. And that's the whole point of this object, is to be a helper in my code. So now let's go to our listeners. And all I really need to do is change the focus gained method. Notice right here it says field1.addFocusListener. Excuse me. So what I'm about to do here is when the user clicks on field 1, I'm going to set the focus to field 1. So when focus is gained, H dot, and there's my beautiful little menu that appears, and I'm going to want set focus field 1. Make sure the spelling is exact, because remember, if you spell it wrong, it's going to set it equal to null. I don't have to do anything with focus lost. Let's go down to field 2. Let's get rid of our print line method. H dot set focus field 2. And what that'll do is that'll just set the focus when I click on the Fahrenheit field to field 2. So that's all I need to do with my focus listeners. Now it's time to actually add functionality to our button. Here's what we do. We go down to where button is created, create a new line, and type the following. Button.addActionListener. The action listener is a special listener which listens for actions. So for example, when a button is pressed, that's considered an action. Inside, I create a new action listener, empty parentheses, beginning curly brace, enter, and that creates a closing curly brace. But you'll notice that these are underlined in red, and there are 2 reasons. One, I have to import the action listener class, but Eclipse is going to help me. I hover over action listener, and right here, first in the list, import action listener from java.auth.event. Now, the red still hasn't gone away, but it has turned to green, and that means that it's been imported. And now what I want to do is add unimplemented methods. And there's one method in particular that I need. I click on that. It's called action performed. So now I actually get to code what happens when the button is pressed. Well, the first thing I want to do is I want to be able to check and see which field has the focus. Is it field 1 or field 2? And so what I do is I say string focus equals h dot get focus. And that returns the field, the text field that has the current focus, back to this class or this method right here and stores it into the string variable called focus. Now, what I need to do next is I need to create something called a try and a catch. And here's the reason why. When I grab the text, I type in the field. So let's say I type in 50 degrees into the Celsius field. While it looks like 50 is a number, in reality what I'm typing in is a string. And so I have to do this conversion from a string into an actual number, a double. And that could be error prone because I might accidentally type 50 and then the letter F, and the computer wouldn't know what 50F is. So just follow me and I'll try and explain this better as we go along. Try, beginning curly brace, enter. This is called a try block. You're going to use a try block when you're trying to do something that could possibly create errors. Then we have to create a catch block. But a catch block has to have something to catch. And when an error occurs in Java, we call that an exception. And so what I do is I type in exception, and I've got to give this exception a name. And so I'm going to call this particular exception E. Not very complicated. Create a beginning and a closing block for that. And so this is called a try catch block. Now, once I have the focus, I need to be able to try and see whether it's field 1 or field 2. So I'm going to say if focus dot equals field 1, what if it's field 1? Then I'm going to do something. Else, if focus equals field 2, I'm going to do something else. But I only care about field 1 and field 2. If the focus is set to anything else like null, then I'm just not going to do anything. So, okay, what if focus equals field 1? Well, remember, field 1, let's see where my error is. Field 1 is the Celsius field. So if I have a Celsius value, I want to convert it to a Fahrenheit. So here's the reason why I have the try catch block. Because I have to convert a text value into a number value, into a double. So what I do is I say double C equals double with a capital D dot parse double. And I'm going to pass in field 1 dot get text, like that. All right, let's explain what happens. First, I grab the text out of field 1. That's what the user typed. Then parse double is a beautiful method that's already been written for me. And what it does is it converts the text into an actual double value, a long decimal number. Well, if nothing goes wrong, then this code will execute perfectly fine. But if something did go wrong, like for example, if I typed 50F, then it would come down here to the catch block, and I would have some kind of code that would handle that problem, that exception. Well, let's pretend that nothing goes wrong. Now, what I need to do is I need to convert this Celsius to a Fahrenheit. So I say double F. And here's where my helper object steps back in. I can use my helper object, H dot Celsius to Fahrenheit, and I pass in C into that, and it will automatically come down here to the blueprint. It'll do all the calculations for me here in the blueprint, and then return F equals math.round. It'll return the Fahrenheit value back to this part of the code up here. Oops, I passed it. Right here. It'll return the value and store it into F right here. Now what I have to do is I have to store this Celsius and this Fahrenheit value back into its appropriate field. So now that I have the Fahrenheit value, I say field 2 dot set text, and I have to do something kind of special. This is kind of like a workaround. See, if I just have F, Java is going to yell at me, or Eclipse is going to yell at me because set text is all about strings, and F is not a string, it's a double, it's a decimal number. So I work around that by using double quotes and a plus sign. And this double quote here, this is empty, so this is called the empty character. And what it does is it basically takes the character that represents nothing and adds the double to it and converts the whole thing into a string for me. So that will set field 2. Now down here, I say double F equals double dot parse double, and I'm going to pass in the F value into that. or excuse me, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say field2.getText. There we go. So I grab the text out of field 2, and then I say double C equals, my helper object comes back into play, h dot Fahrenheit to Celsius. I pass in the Fahrenheit value, and then I say field1 dot set text, empty quotes plus C. Wow, that's a long set of videos. All right, now notice that it's still complaining here with E, and I understand why now. It's because up here, the action event that we had is also called E. So I can't reuse that name, can I? All right, well, we're going to fix this by saying EX for exception. And now that takes care of it. So what if there's an exception? Well, I'll say system.out.println, hey, something is wrong in one of your text fields. There we go. In theory, this should be enough now to work. All right, let's see what the damage is. Let's run it. Let's see what happens when I type in 50 and then hit convert. Da 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 da. 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, what if I type in 50 degrees Fahrenheit? 10 degrees Celsius. Now, 0 degrees Celsius is 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's see if that works. 32. What is 100 degrees Fahrenheit? 37.778. Notice I got 3 decimal places, right? Well, that's exactly what this code down here was all about. This math.round 1,000 times C, then divide by 1,000. That made sure that I had at least 3 decimal values. So there it is, our little Celsius to Fahrenheit converter. Cute little thing, isn't it? It's working great. Hey, what's negative 34 degrees Celsius? That's negative 29.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Cool beans. Well, is that right? Maybe that's wrong. Let's check this out real quick. I want to check that out. That doesn't sound quite right to me. So, Celsius to Fahrenheit. We're going to check a little online converter. And what did I type in? I typed in negative 34. No, that's right. Negative 29.2 is correct. So our program's working. Awesome. Okay, so that ends this part of the series, creating our very first GUI, where we actually have some focus listeners, and I have an action listener attached to my button so that it actually performs different functions. Now again, there is probably, most likely, an easier way to do this. And if there is, then shoot me a message. I'll go through that. But at least this way works. It's an effective way of doing it. And it introduces us to a lot of different concepts. God bless you, wherever you are today.